Arise now, ye tarnishes, ye flaws upon game production. The pull of mediocrity ignores no game. Menus, the all-encompassing. Narrative, the impenetrable. Proper nouns, the soporific. QA, the downsized. And PC port, slayer of quality games.
You know, I had a really nice video lined up about how much better ice cream sandwiches are than Klondike bars.
I look like I had an illicit encounter with the fucking Candyman.
But as I laid in bed at the traditional script writing hour, it wasn't ice cream that occupied my thoughts. Elden Ring. What a game. Massive scale, breathtaking art direction, and Jujutsu Kaisen's worth of video game awards. There's a reason that this is the Fromsoft game that drew the attention of me, someone with zero Fromsoft experience and at most a passing interest in their previous catalog. A fantasy open world with actual colors this time? A story in some way associated with George R.R. Martin? Fromsoft is kind of known for making the same game over and over again, but they started trying new things in their settings and gameplay design, culminating in the first of their games that really reached out into the mainstream and said, hey, we're trying something new. Which is how a bunch of normies like me wound up, here. And while I'm far from the first person to make a video about Elden Ring from an outsider's perspective, they all seem to have a level of, I don't know, cultural relativism? An understanding that, hey, it's a FromSoft game. There are conventions here that you just have to accept as the price of entry. But if this channel can be said to have a motto, it's that there's value in critically analyzing stuff. Especially stuff we like.
Sony, this means war. Woke mob, this means war.
Let's start with the good parts of this game, and there is a lot to talk about here. First off, I mean, it's fucking gorgeous. Look at this. Not only are these environments pretty original, they have a sense of scale and diversity that's hard to match both inside and outside FromSoft's catalog. The combat system is good. You can feel that this is something that's been worked on and refined for a long time, and there's a reason FromSoft's gameplay has been colonizing other genres. The end result today hits, unless some other choice butts in to undercut those solid bones.
Fucking bullshit, holy shit, oh fucker.
Elden Ring has some of the best boss fights in video games. Period. I walked out of the tutorial and spent 2 hours fighting the big tree knight you're obviously supposed to avoid, and I loved every second of it. I spent over 4 hours on failed attempts to murder the Omen King, and it somehow only got more fun over time. That flow state that FromSoft fans talk about, where everything just clicks and the fight starts to feel choreographed, it's real. I would be sincerely surprised if any boss fight anywhere tops that one. Unfortunately, while those strong points are stronger than most games manage, Elden Ring's runtime is persistently undercut by a wide variety of flaws. I finally beat the Omen King, breathed a sigh of catharsis as the game ended on its highest note yet, and then it kept going for another 60 hours. More is not necessarily better, and Elden Ring has an unfortunate tendency to pad its runtime with its worst content. Here's an unfun boss to fight. Now fight him again, but in a worse arena. Now fight him and a related boss, except they res each other, so you have to kill both of them in a single strike. That's kind of neat, right? No, wait, that would make too much sense. Actually, give them a giant disconnected health bar so that if you kill both of them, they just reappear out of thin air, to spontaneously die of heart failure 2 seconds later when their health actually runs out. This boss really shows off how bad our camera controls are, and their limitations in the open world, so let's make sure the player fights him as many times as possible. The boss everyone talks about, Melania. She's way harder than the others, not because she demands a high skill level to execute, they all do, but because she breaks the rules we established and can randomly unstagger herself to launch a fatal combo that comes out before your attack recovery. She has a move that basically just kills you from anywhere in the arena. It can't be interrupted except by some really specific debuffs that we don't indicate anywhere, and each of its 4 strikes looks the same but has to be dodged with different methods, none of which really make sense for the attack. Oh, and also all her attacks have heavy lifesteal, so good luck, champ. When I googled how I was supposed to deal with this bullshit, I broke out the multiplayer summons friends for the first and only time in the game. No regrets. Ooh, get good, get carried, scrub, fake gamer. Dude, your shitty design decisions are not my problem. When a player decides something isn't worth their time to play, that represents a failure on the part of the developer. It is your job to sufficiently engage your audience for the content you're making. And the final boss, I actually experienced secondhand embarrassment when I realized how this thing was designed. That this was how they chose to end their game. Its design, both mechanically and narratively, is baffling, although at least the gameplay makes sense once you realize that this fight was really clearly supposed to have you riding Torrent and they just forgot or something. If you've beaten the game, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Elden Ring's narrative is functionally non-existent, and the characterization of its protagonist is actually non-existent. You wander around and kill a bunch of gods because you broke into their house and they attacked you. Your motivation is that you're John Fromsoft and that this is just what happens in Fromsoft games. Some chick asks you to take her to the huge tree off in the distance, and you agree because you're already going there, and she said she'd help you. But I only talked to her like 3 times before you get there and she leaves. That's the story for the first half of the game. Apparently there are churches she talks at, but I missed most of those. Gotta love that big open world. She turns out to be the tree? The tree's daughter? I still don't know. She lights herself on fire and everyone's like, oh no, don't let her do that. She's a lady, but it doesn't even hurt her. They build it up as this traumatic thing, but she doesn't respond at all. No model change. She doesn't cry out or anything. Is she dead now? It's supposed to light the tree on fire, but instead you fall asleep and wake up in one of the worst areas of the game with no explanation. You slog your way through it, and in the last area waits one of the vendors from earlier in the game, and he goes,
No, you cannot steal the rune mark of destined death. It will ravage the entire world. My true name is Malekith, America's Black Blade, and I will stop you.
Christ. And his design is cool, his moves are cool. And maybe this is one of the good boss fights, but you're 80 hours in and you didn't even come here for the rune. You literally just woke up here. So you don't really bother learning his fight, because who knows if it's actually good. They almost always aren't by this point in the game. The rune is a sword or something. You reach out to touch it, but don't. It explodes or something, and you wake up in another different place, and the big tree is on fire now.
Alan, what did you do? Did you roofie me?
I didn't do anything.
I don't know. We woke up in some city.
I can't believe this is happening again.
You just did the biggest thing that's ever been done by anybody, ever, and you don't even know why. You're just some dude with narcolepsy. It's maddening because there are good stories here, the small ones that you actually get to see and participate in, instead of just hearing secondhand or blundering through for no reason. Ronnie's storyline is 10 times better than the main quest. She and Blythe are really the only compelling characters in the game because you actually get to see them and learn about them and participate in their journey.
Half-Wolf Blythe, the bestest boy in Elden Ring.
That Scarlet Rot girl with the needle seemed neat, although she just kind of vanished and is probably out there in the giant fuck-off world somewhere. And I will never see her again unless I check the wiki to find out where she's waiting for me to talk to her. You're gonna be on the wiki a lot anyway. Most of the quests rely on you finding easily missed items or people. I found out after 60 hours that I had at some point pressed a menu button that disables item flavor descriptions as well, so I'm sure there's 5 million lore videos worth of environmental storytelling down the drain there. Thanks, user interface. Did I mention this game is really obviously not designed for PC? The menu controls are inconsistent, and oh man, if you want to use the enemy tracking and are foolish enough to touch the mouse while you do, the mouse your attack buttons are on, it will grab your camera and switch to any nearby squirrels mid-boss fight. There's no way to disable this. It's listed as a control but can't be changed or disabled. Did anybody playtest this? So you can't really use the focus system, but movement is meant for controllers and doesn't really work normally for PC without the focus system. You can't even use it for a lot of larger boss fights anyway because they don't put focus points on the bits you actually want to hit. And oh, the menus. There are so many menus. You know, a wise man once said that there are 2 types of games: jumping and menus. Elden Ring has both, and its jumping is often pretty good, but its menus are not, and Jesus Christ, it really seems to want to be a menu-type game. It's all but impossible to compare equipment and builds. Your weapon's damage depends not only on how much you've upgraded it, but how its changing ratios interact with your changing stats, not even getting into different attack strings and hitboxes. So how does my current giant sword compare to this new item I just picked up? Well, even if it's also a sword that also scales with intelligence, there's no way for me to tell without either devoting a bunch of finite resources to upgrading it, or going to the wiki and then doing a bunch of math. The wiki might as well have its own hotkey at this point. And trying to consider an outright different build, like if you've got some dexterity crit gloves, forget it. You're gonna have to spend an hour respecking your character and burning rare resources just to try it out. These issues are everywhere. Elden Ring has some of the highest highs in gaming. It's full of wonderful moments and views, and when it hits, but looking back, 80% of my playtime was lows. Buggy systems, frustrating menus, bloated mechanics. The narrative is 90% just hoping the player doesn't ask too many questions, and it vastly overstays its welcome. Overall, is Elden Ring even a good game? Well, yes, it is a good game. Despite all my issues, I can't disregard the obvious care that went into many aspects, absent though that care may be in other parts. From now on, every boss fight I play is going to be measured up against the Omen King, and every open world is going to be compared to the sweeping cliffs of the lands between. Maybe a more damning question is whether Elden Ring is worth the time it takes to play. Because just being good isn't good enough in today's market. Elden Ring took me 100 hours to thoroughly beat, and nothing after the Omen King really justified its own existence. Go play Deus Ex, go play Firewatch, go play Transistor or Valhalla or Dust Force. Don't lie to me, I know you've got a backlog of masterpieces. So, as always, we have to ask, how could this be done right? A lot of solutions are straightforward, especially the QA stuff. Fix movement on PC, allow us to unbind the lock system, put the large monster focus points on places you actually want to hit, make the menus functional, please. Other issues are basic game design stuff. If there's a boss that requires parrying, properly tutorialize it so I don't have to find that out on the wiki. Tell us that encumbrance is a thing instead of just starting us out halfway crippled. Don't make bosses like Manila. Probably my biggest suggestion might also be the most controversial. This game needs to have about 50% less game in it. The main story should end with the Omen King. All the bullshit after that needs to be dramatically scaled down or cut entirely, in addition to making the narrative actually, parsable. If the player needs the wiki and multiple YouTube channels to get the scraps of your story, that's not environmental storytelling, that's bad writing and design. The maps need to be smaller, and some areas should probably be cut entirely. These landscapes are pretty, but eventually become a pain to traverse, and it's far too easy to miss fast travel points or key subplot encounters, or the one fucking obelisk that turns the map on for this 4-hour chunk of exploration. I'm sure it improves replayability, but almost nobody is going to replay this game on account of how big it is. And if you think delete half your game is spicy, how about this advice? Ditch the whole Souls thing. Look, there are a lot of different ways to do difficulty, and the laziest, stupidest one is to just crank the numbers up. Fromsoft does give enemies unique attacks and unique appearances, but the fact remains that there is an artificial difficulty curve above which the game is prohibitively hard, and below which all content is trivialized. Fromsoft gamers love to fillet themselves over how there's no easy mode. Then how do you explain me going back to explore parts of the map I missed and struggling to stay awake as I repeatedly one-shot these hyped-up mini-bosses? I get the mechanic is part of your brand identity, but I really think the game would be better without it. It comes with all sorts of toxic incentives and behavior patterns, and people don't need a number-go-up reward to keep moving forward. That's what this beautiful world you made is for. Not to mention there's already a great way to handle progression, reward, and buildcraft. Items and equipment. Rewarding players with that would help progress the game through actual mechanical differences instead of just, wow, my int stat is 97 now. And surely all you tough FromSoft gamers wouldn't mind having the game be a little more dependent on skill instead of just farming, right? Get rid of the stones too, reject extrinsic key jangling, embrace intrinsic motivation and new mechanics.
Look, there are a lot of different ways to do
player reward and buildcraft.
and the laziest, stupidest one is to just crank the numbers up.
If you absolutely must have number go up JRPG progress, I guess you can keep the system where you spend 2,000 Dark Soul crystals to upgrade your sword to purple rarity or whatever, but frankly the whole system is a bit obtuse even after I'd been primed by other Souls-likes. I still think it'd be cooler if each weapon had a static, unique stat line. The Dark Moon Blade should always be better than my shitty starting knife no matter how many shiny rocks I put into it. There's a reason why even as adjacent genres import mechanics wholesale, they haven't bothered to steal the massive pile of calculator-inducing menus. Oh boy, I can't wait for the worst parts of Monster Hunter, huzzah! At least Monster Hunter has an excuse, what with its central gameplay premise being loot-based. Regardless, I walked away from Elden Ring feeling mixed. I played through 100 hours of it, if only for Ronnie's sake in the latter parts, and I could see myself really enjoying the next game they make. Especially if that game features sick-ass mechs in a franchise whose cutscenes I had long coveted from my cubby beneath the stairs. And then 2 hours into Armored Core 6, I refunded that shit. Give me my money and my time back, FromSoft. How do you even fuck up a game that badly on every level? Shout out in particular to the worst AI and dialogue I've seen since Valkyria Chronicles.
This guy's good. Okay, you can do this. Wait, why is my radio on? Shit.
Going up against Crimson Talon, huh? I just hope you know what you're getting into.
What? Bro, you're the one who picked this mission. Who's Crimson Talon? Wait.
It's that crazy mercenary that wiped out Battalion 4. Quick, everyone walk up to him and stand around shooting from a middle distance while he kills us.
Here, fight back!
We're no match for an HP.
Have no fear. The world is with us. This can't be. How are you? Sokka, my only brother.
Please, Please, Fromsoft, Homeworld came out like 2 decades ago. We have the technology to make realistic radio chatter.
Capture target secured, but they are not too happy about it. Ops, advise caution during crew transfer. Lead into it. Yes, copy. Threat identified. Enemy carrier. Fast and loose, in and out. Group engineering, replace those relays, or this is going to be a short trip.
Just because the weebs don't know what real people sound like doesn't make it right to take advantage of them. Fromsoft, please! And here is just an unedited list of bad things I found in Elden Ring trying to get footage, in case you wanted more evidence for my theory that Fromsoft had all their QA testers preemptively shot. You can't move diagonally forward and look behind you at the same time. Strafing completely commandeers your camera. Why? Editing Griffin here. It turns out there is actually a setting to turn this off. I played for 90 hours without finding it because mid-boss fight you're not thinking, it seems that when I engage my left strafe button, the camera rotates as well. You're thinking, holy fuck, what is my camera doing? And so I didn't realize what the actual, specific problem with the camera was. And it seems I'm not the only one, since I can find plenty of threads griping about the camera, but if I want to hear about the setting that fixes it, I have to force Google to only include pages that mention it by name. So, Elden Gamers, my gift to you, here's the button that unfucks the camera. And Miyazaki, I know you're watching this, there are actually people you can hire who will play your game and tell you stuff, like maybe our default camera setting should be normal instead of terrible. Just a tip from an experienced game designer to someone just starting out. The button for opening the map up isn't listed in any of the controls. I did it once by muscle memory and then had to look it up. Actually, a lot of buttons aren't listed in the controls. Why? The button to open the map does not close the map. It instead opens a different menu. Right-clicking does not go back. Escape also does not close your menus. I will go through this same humiliating button dance every time I open my map. There's a set of 6 hotbar slots for items, summons, etc. I pressed every button on my keyboard. There are no hotkeys for these slots. Why do I have to cycle through my healing button and every other item just to use my horse? I found it! I've found it. It's holding down E. That's the command. It's not listed anywhere. You're gonna have to figure that one out yourself. Except there are 6 item slots and only 2 hotkey buttons, so the other 2 are somewhere. Probably. Maybe. Who knows? What's the button for two-handing? Fuck you, that's the button for two-handing. Speaking of your horse, there are no pickups that make him faster or give him more jumps. Your maps are fucking huge. This was the easiest layup in the history of game design. Aggroing an enemy disables your map for a duration known only to God. Sometimes you can open your map right next to an enemy and get attacked while browsing. Other times running past a mollusk disables your map seemingly indefinitely. Fall damage. Why? Oh, but Griffin, what about the DLC? I don't know, man. I'm not playing that shit. Do you really think I want more Elden Ring in Elden Ring? Let me know in the comments whether it fixed movement or added a map button or made focus switching key bindable, and it'll get the thumbs up from me, I guess. Oh, and hey, if you're a diehard Elden Ring fan that gave me enough credit to get this far, your reward is a reminder to go try out 9 Souls. In addition to being a great Metroidvania in a rare art and thematic style, it had some fights that really triggered that same flow state as the good Elden Ring bosses. Come on, it's even got the word Souls in the title. And 9? It's okay, you'll get there eventually, Miyazaki. Oh, oh, oh. Oh, 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 oh.